There we go. So I got Dr. Paul Stanford here. Do you prefer to be called Doctor or Paul? I've been wondering that before the show.
It does not matter to me. I do know that in Jent's place, I am Dr. Paul, all caps. So all of my emails come as somebody's yelling Dr. Paul at me.
When you have a designation at the Jent's place, we like to scream it out over the rooftops, over the mountains. So
I feel special.
All right, well, I'm going to call you Paul today, and if at any point you want me to call you Doctor, I'll switch gears to that. That's fine. So Paul runs Stanford couples counseling. You specialize in, I think what we're talking about today is just, when there's adversity, some people kind of put their head in the sand and they go to a deep, dark place. And some people, through counseling, through therapy, or through their own life experiences, that adversity hits them and they're telling themselves, if there's a will, there's a way, and they shoot off in a different direction. But it sounds like you kind of help people through adversity in relationships, and probably that gets into all other parts of their life. It touches everything that they're dealing with. And so I was excited to chat with you today because you kind of do this for a living, is helping counsel people on navigating really tough situations. And so, as you know, this podcast is about people making positive shifts in their thinking and their mindset, in their spiritual life, and their families. What are you seeing right now, and or what do you recommend to anybody that's in this? We talked earlier about this like frozen state, like they're calling you up and going, Dr. Paul, what do I do? I don't even know what to do next.
Yeah. Well, the first thing, and obviously this is going to be a little on brand because I'm a therapist, but you got to get help. And it does not have to be professional help, although there are thousands of mental health professionals out there that are fantastic. Plenty of them, like us, are definitely doing more pro bono work now more than ever. And so there's really no excuse not to get help because everyone's doing the teletherapy now as well. So you can hop on, you could be in an appointment today by the end of the day, whether on your phone, on video. I always prefer video to be able to see the nonverbal cues, but we can do phone as well if necessary. The government has lifted the restrictions to where they're a little less picky about how you do that sort of thing, just so people get help. So it's really giving us the green light just to do whatever we can to get help. I was thinking about your podcast and the idea of shifting is just so innate and ingrained in me at this point, because on 3 different fronts, that's all I do. One being a therapist, of course. I've literally had dozens of clients over the years ask me, do I really believe people can change? And I always look at them and laugh and go, how much of an idiot would I be if I do what I do and I didn't believe people can change, right? Like I'm literally just wasting my time and everybody else's time in my office. So my job is all about change, right? It's about steering people towards the right change. I never believe that I can make people change. I don't believe any of us can make someone change, but if someone is willing to change or thinks that they need some change and all they need is a little bit of direction, I think therapy can be great. Socializing can be great. I know it's not the same as in person, but you got to get on Zoom, you got to get on Skype, you got to get on Facebook video, whatever it might be, and you have to interact with people. It's so important. Even I'm introverted myself, actually. People drain me, ironically, given what I do. But I realize more and more, even for introverts, they don't like to admit that. But I just had one admit to me this morning that she's extremely depressed just because she's stuck in her house and can't get out and get out and about. So definitely encouraging her to go on more walks and socialize more. But so as a therapist, I'm a big believer in shifting and changing, but also as an entrepreneur. I mean, I just started this company less than 5 years ago and started with just me and one subleased office in North Dallas. And I mean, we just hit 100 clients in a quarter for the first time, like a year and a half ago, something like that. And we just hit 1,000 last quarter. So,
wow.
And now we have 3 offices, one in Fort Worth and one in Plano as well. And all that is not to brag on me. A lot of that's just because I have been willing to listen to other people and not reinvent the wheel. I can't tell you how many times I just ask people, what do you think of this? And I'm polling people. Heck, half of the reason I named my company Stanford Couples Counseling, because somebody told me, advertise towards what you love and the rest will follow. Because I said, well, I don't want people to think I don't see individuals, I don't see families, because we do. I said, well, I advertise towards couples, and that has gotten me some amazing couples therapists. And then we still see lots of individuals and lots of families, because we definitely are trained and experienced in that as well. But that came from listening to a couple of other people that had run successful practices and did some of that coaching, consulting work. And then just recently, 6 months ago, I don't know when you realized this, Ben, probably way earlier than I did. But at some point, probably in August, I finally realized, okay, I've taken this thing as far as I can by myself. So it's time to get some marketing consultants, get some advertising consultants, and let's actually work this professionally, because I've been piecing it together and doing an okay job, but you have to have help. And so I think it's the same way in business as it is in personal life. You have to have help, especially in times like this. So whether it's monetary resources, whether it's government, whether it's friends, whether it's socialization, you have to have help. And then the third piece is, personally, as a Christian, I mean, that's written all over the Bible, right? Is that you don't do this alone. You do this together. You do this with neighbors. You do this with brothers and sisters, and you reach out, because there's no way you can do it alone. And so one of my favorite things that I've seen about this time is just in my community of friends, some of which are stronger in faith, some of which are less so, but just the questions and the curiosity around, what does it all mean? What are we doing here? Why is this happening to us? And what do we do about it? It's just exciting for me just to see people thinking about the big questions. I'm a big question kind of guy, so I don't love a whole lot of small talk and going, let's dive in and let's have some real conversation. So it's just been a fun time for me just to get to know my friends a lot better, honestly, and help them through what they're going through. And then as a therapist, I just get tons of people going, hey, what do you recommend for this? Hey, will you talk to this person? What do you think about this issue? I'm on online forums, a couple of different ones. And so when I see people struggling with depression and things like that, I make referrals or make suggestions to them. So it's just been a really neat time for me to see what God's been preparing me for. I was actually reading in my Bible this morning about Esther. I don't know if you know much about Esther. I probably heard the story a dozen times, but I don't know that I've ever really read it. Don't tell anybody that, Ben. This is just between you and me, right? And it talks about the king was going to annihilate all the Jews in the land, and he didn't know that his queen, Esther, was a Jew. And so her uncle was like, you've got to save us. You've got to go and break your silence and tell him and try to save us. And she said, I'm scared. I could literally die. He might kill me. And he said, what if this is the reason why God made you queen, for just this moment? And so I've been thinking a lot about, it's moments like these where, I think therapists always play an important role, obviously, in people's lives, but it's moments like these where as therapists, but especially also, I believe, as a Christian, God has given us a direction to say, hey, you can be a beacon of light, a beacon of hope. And like you talk about, when people are in their darkest hour and when they're frozen, when they're stuck, you can give them a reason to say, hey, all right, maybe there's a little glimmer of hope. Maybe there's a little bit of light, enough to get out the door, enough to get up out of bed. This is certainly a challenging time for a lot of people, and mental health issues are definitely on the rise. So for me, I'm just trying to get the word out there as much as possible. Reach out for help. It can even be a hotline. It could be Ben. Ben can find you plenty of good therapists. He knows lots of them. You can reach out to me, but just reach out. Don't stay silent, and don't hole up, because that's the worst thing you can do. It actually has the opposite.
Yeah, it seems like that group we were talking about before the show, that are in this fight, flight, or freeze state, that are frozen, they're isolating themselves, and they're doing the exact opposite of what will likely make them happy, which is getting connected with other people. People that have like a positive mindset. You don't want to, Zig Ziglar says, we talked about on the show, like you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with the most. Well, now you can't really hang with people as easily. So you might be the average of the 5 TV shows you watch the most, Tiger King, which I have seen, I'll admit. Or the 5 people you're talking to on Zoom, or the 5 people you're talking to on House Party or whatever. Yeah. You brought up this other thing too about unity. We are seeing just this collective awakening where people are moving towards the center. And I don't mean that, like politically. It's, Christians are moving this direction and Muslims are moving this direction. Republicans are moving here and Democrat, like, it seems like we're all kind of moving together. which is what God, intends us to do. And so many of these religions have common belief systems beyond what, people even talk about. When you have people calling right now as a couples counselor, is this a more difficult time for them? And if so, are you giving any different advice than you have before? Is it the same? Is it kind of the same thing? Like just keep staying the course? Have you found cases where it's easier, where this has actually helped bring people closer, and this has kind of helped some of their situation because of that collective awakening or unity or whatever you want to call it? Kind of tell me what you're fielding right now over the last 30 days and how maybe your advice has been changed, or some of the positives that have come out of it.
Yeah, it's interesting, Ben. Similar to when you and I were talking earlier, it's really polarized my client base. And what I mean by that is I feel like half have gone into this difficult place where they're going, we're around each other all the time. There's no escape from the kids. There's no escape from each other, because I don't care how strong of a relationship you are, you definitely need some alone time, right? Some people need a couple minutes, some people need a few hours, but you need some, and it's tougher and tougher for people to get that. And so I have those people, which seems to be about half. And then I have another half that are just going, man, what a sweet time that we get to enjoy each other's company, to really pour into our kids, to pour into our marriage, to be able to talk with each other and have the time that we wouldn't normally get. And so my approach differs, as you can imagine, depending on which camp they fall into. For the latter, it's often saying, all right, how do we build on this? How do we continue this momentum? And also, how can you carry this on whenever we eventually go back to quote unquote normal life, right? And a lot of times I get pushback. Well, all right, but it's because we have so much free time. And it's, well, free time is where your priorities are. I'm assuming if I asked your wife about, all right, if Jen's Place needs this to happen, like how much time does Ben dedicate to it, right? And you do, because it's part of your identity, it's your livelihood, it's your baby. I say the same thing about your relationships. If you really value them, then invest more into them. So I think this is at least a time for those people to see, oh, if we invest in them, we actually get a good return on our investment. And so that's been exciting to help them grow that. I'm definitely a more solution-focused guy, so that's a lot of fun for me. And then the other side, for the people that are stuck or feeling claustrophobic, feeling trapped, feeling like they're just never going to escape this never-ending hell. It's about finding the little moments, it's about finding the positives, it's about finding a little time for themselves, honestly. And I preach that a lot. I think a lot of people are surprised to hear that from a couples therapist a lot of times, but I always give the example, Ben, that they do on the airplane, where they say, if you're with a loved one or a child, put your own mask on first. And so, because people always, especially in Christian community, but I think in general relationships, a lot of people feel like, well, that's selfish to think about my own needs. And I say, well, if it's at the cost of someone else's, sure. But a lot of people do that self-sacrificing martyrdom thing where they are just putting their own needs, shoving them away to try and be a better husband, be a better wife, father, mother, whatever it might be. But in the end, they and everyone else around them is suffering because they're not putting their own mask on first. And so just encouraging them to do better self-care. And even if you're in the same house, and even if it's not a very large house, carving out some time for yourself, even if it's taking a walk and going to your favorite spot under a tree. I've also been encouraging people, just the social aspect, go sit on your front porch. Put chairs out there. If you don't have chairs, sit there with some lemonade, a stiffer drink if you prefer, and be a part of the community. That's what we used to do back in the day, right? And there's so many people out and about walking around that it's a great opportunity to actually be a part of your community and to let the community into your life as well. Now, it doesn't mean I don't want 1,000 people at my house, every Friday or anything like that. So it doesn't mean all of a sudden you have to be the host of every neighborhood party for all time, but just people waving and saying hi and seeing people interact and seeing people out and about can give you that little boost of going, okay, the world is still out there. I'm not alone, and I'm not going to be destitute by the end of this.
I think you've already answered this, but if you want to elaborate any more on it, there are so many people that, I know I need to talk to a therapist. Yeah, my mom has told me that, or yeah, my husband, I'm going to do it soon, but I can't afford it right now. And even if they're giving it away free, I don't want to take someone else's spot. And let's just assume that you've got a group of people that they're just not going to call you or call a therapist. They're not going to seek professional help. If they're listening to this, if they're one of those folks that I'm just not going to do it for whatever reason. You mentioned some of these things already that they can do. Is there something that the message you want to send to them? This is what you can do today. This is what you can do this week. This is what you should, assuming you're not going to talk, we're never going to hear from you, to try to get to a better place.
One of the things I like to share with clients or even people that aren't willing to come into therapy, and I'll be honest with you, Ben, this is a do as I say, not as I do, because I'm not great at this, but is journaling. And when I say journaling, I don't just mean you can get an empty notebook and write it each day if you want to, more like a diary. But what I often challenge people to do is, so you're not going to talk to a therapist. Maybe write an email to, just put therapist in the 2-line. What would you say to a therapist? And just type it out. If a therapist were to ask you, hey, what are you coming in for? What would you like help with? Write it out. If you have a difficult conversation you really feel like you need to have with your mom, or with your spouse, or with a friend, or a fun conversation, but you can't talk to them right now for whatever reason, write it out, because studies show that actually has a really positive psychological benefit of just getting that out of here and on to somewhere else. And not only getting it out of there, but also helps you externalize it, and a lot of times makes the bad problems not so bad, and really accentuates the good pieces, because you're going, oh, okay, it's always worse in here. Just about always, it's almost always worse than reality, because we fear the worst or our own worst enemy a lot of times. So just externalizing it a lot of times helps. So that's a big one that I've been encouraging people to do, because it helps even if you're not huge into social or not huge into therapy. Go ahead and do something for yourself. And by the way, it's your email. If after writing it out, you might go, maybe I want to send this, and then you can send it. But if not, you can delete it. You can save it in drafts. You can do whatever you want with it.
I love that. It makes me think of, I believe it was Abraham Lincoln that wrote all of these letters out to his adversaries that he never sent. It's because just that experience of putting it on paper and externalizing it was this cathartic experience for him that allowed him to move on from whatever he felt emotionally. So I love that. It's simple. It's practical. You could do it right now, and it has some results. There's history to this. I got to look up exactly. I think they found the letters somewhere, but pretty amazing, that some things don't change with time, because Abraham Lincoln was a human the same way that we are now, right?
Yeah, I'll further your point, Ben. Marcus Aurelius, for those who don't know, the old man in Gladiator, did the same thing. He just wrote a lot of memoirs and never planned to have them published or anything like that. It was 120 AD or something like that. And they since were gathered up and published, and it's one of the best-selling motivational meditative works of all time.
Yes. Sounds like we need to do an hour on Stoicism, you and me, it sounds like.
All right, now we're talking.
Yeah. All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I think we haven't had a counselor, professional therapist, PhD type on the podcast yet. And, I think there has been a lot of advice that's been given out, but there are professionals. This is a good reminder for me. There are professionals that are available right now, some more available than ever, through a Zoom or through a phone call. Don't use that excuse of, the office isn't open, is that there are a bunch of resources still available for people to seek help when a lot of people need it more than ever. So thank you for that reminder.
Of course, yeah, and they can call or email us anytime, even if we're not the right fit. There are thousands of great mental health professionals in Texas and in the U.S. So give us a call, shoot us an email, and we'll help you out even if it's not with us.
Yeah, awesome. All right, brother. Well, stay safe. I hope to see you back at the Gents Place here pretty soon. I know you're totally jealous of my background.
I need it.
Yeah. It looks like I can just pull the bottle. I mean, I can just grab it right here and just put it right here on the counter.
That Woodford's looking pretty good.
Yeah. All right, man. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you.